If you believe that you have received it, it shall be yours. If you believe that you received it, it shall be yours. Whatever you pray and ask for, if you believed that you received it, it shall be yours. Here he translates it clearly as received it. He's convinced that it's received it, not receive it or will receive it. Received it.
So here I am to worship. Here I am to bow. Here I am to say, you're my God. You're altogether lovely, altogether worth, altogether wonderful to me. Oh, here I am to worship. Here I am to bow. Here I am to say, you're my God. You're altogether love, altogether worth, altogether wonderful to me. Here I am to worship. Oh, here I am to bow. Here I am to say, you're my God. You're altogether love. You're altogether wonderful to me. Oh, here I am to worship. Here I am to bow. Here I am to sing. You're my God. You're altogether love, altogether wonderful to me.
Mark chapter 11, let me read to you from verse 20 to 24. Now in the morning, as they passed by, they saw the fig tree dried up from the roots. And Peter, remembering, said to him, Rabbi, look, the fig tree which you cursed has withered away. So Jesus answered and said to them, have faith in God. For assuredly I say to you, whoever says to this mountain, be removed and be cast into the sea, and does not doubt in his heart, but believes that those things he says will be done, he will have whatever he says. Therefore I say to you, whatever things you ask when you pray, believe that you receive them, and you will have them. Verse 23 and 24, you're talking about the mountain-moving faith. Does everybody do that? What does it look like to other people? There are so many preachers preaching, and there are so many churches and so on. Do they open to Mark 11 and this particular passage and see what you're seeing there, the mountain-moving faith? My answer is, most of them do not even deal with it, because they take one good look at verse 23, which says, whosoever shall say unto the mountain, be thou removed, be thou cast into the sea, and shall not doubt in his heart, but believes that whatever he says will come to pass. They stop right there and say, this must not be real. It can't be real. How can anybody speak to a mountain and the mountain move? So let's not deal with it. We don't know about it. And they leave it like that. And I think it's best left like that if you don't know what to do with it, But there are others who feel that they know what it's saying also. They're kind of experts in theology and all of that. So they look at it and they say, well, we can interpret it. We don't want to interpret it like anyone can say to the mountain, be thou removed, because that will be too difficult to believe. It's unreal. It can't. Jesus could not have said that, Not possible at all, because this is unreasonable. You just can't believe it. So how shall we look at it? So they look at the entire chapter and they find that this passage, this cursing of the fig tree passage, occurs right in between the temple passages, talking about temple and the things that happen in the temple. For example, verse 12 to 14, you read about Jesus coming into Jerusalem, and that is when he curses the fig tree, saying, no one shall eat fruit of you hereafter. Then he goes into Jerusalem, and there he drives out the dove sellers and the merchants and so on who are making money in the temple, telling them, this must be the house of God. God said that my house will be a house of God, house of prayer. but you have made it a den of thieves. You're using it to making money and ripping people off, taking their money, because everything they're selling for 2-3 times more inside the temple. So Jesus drives all of them out and then teaches them, saying, this house must be a house of prayer, but you've made it a den of thieves, and so on. And then he goes out again, out of Jerusalem. Like I said last week, he comes into Jerusalem, does all this, and then he can't stay in Jerusalem because a lot of opposition is created because of what he does. So he leaves Jerusalem and goes and stays in Bethany, and next morning comes back into Jerusalem. Every day he comes into Jerusalem and does this, goes out and stays. So next morning as they were coming, that's when Peter saw that the tree that Jesus cursed is withered away. He comes to Jesus and says, the Lord, the tree that you cursed is withered away. When Jesus cursed it, he didn't say, I'm cursing it. He simply said, let no one eat fruit of you hereafter. But Peter interprets it as a curse. That's what it amounts to. He's saying, you'll never be fruitful again. So he says, Lord, the tree you cursed is withered away. And in response to that, if this, people say, see, look at this, right in between, 12 to 14 says that Jesus cursed the fig tree. 15 to 19 talks about the cleansing of the temple. Jesus driving out the dove sellers and the merchants out of the temple and teaching in the temple. Then verse 20 picks up the fig tree story again, where Peter sees the tree cursed. And then Jesus teaches on faith. So they say, this has something to do with the temple. So they have chosen to interpret it this way. They say, this is not about the fig tree at all. Fig tree is not the issue. Cursing of the fig tree is not the issue. Even faith is not the issue. The issue here is that the temple has become irrelevant. It has become corrupt. The corruption of the temple and the irrelevance of the temple. Now that God is now dwelling in Christ, reconciling the world to himself, God is not in the temple. And after he dies on the cross, God will get out of Jesus and come and dwell in the hearts of men. We'll become the temple. So why temple? All these big stones, Jesus said they'll all come off and there will not be one stone left on the other. No relevance for the temple. Temple will be done away with. So this is actually not the story about the fig tree or faith. It's a story about temple, they say. So you must not take it very seriously and say, if you can say to the mountain, mountain will move. It's only about how the temple is going to be done away with. See, they take such a big matter and reduce it to nothing. You got to be a real expert to do that. And study for about 10 years to do that. But really, I showed you how from the beginning of Mark's gospel, the story, the theme of faith keeps occurring again and again, where Jesus is talking about faith and the power of faith to turn things around. Talks about the faith of the man who was lowered from the roof, paralytic man. He saw their faith, the people that brought him, and healed him, it says. And in chapter 5, he sees Jairus' faith. He says, only believe. Even, when the news is told that his daughter is sick, Jesus says, I'll come and heal her, and goes. And on the way, a woman with 12 years issue of blood, she comes and touches him, she gets healed. Jesus tells her, your faith has made you whole. And then as they go, the news comes that Jairus' daughter is dead. They say, don't trouble the master. She's dead. What's he going to do now? Jesus looks at him and says, only believe. Don't believe that. You believe what you first believed, that if I come and touch her, she will be healed, you said. Keep believing that. Believe, only believe. And he goes and heals the daughter and actually raises her from the dead. And then they go in a boat and there's a storm, and he calms the storm, speaks to the wind and the wave. When it calms down, turns around to the disciples and says, where is your faith? In other words, he's saying, I've got faith. That's why I spoke to the wind and the wave. And they obeyed. You don't have faith? You're supposed to speak also. That's the implication there. Otherwise, you would not have asked them, where is your faith, right? Where is your faith, he says. Then in chapter 9, there is a guy that brings his son who's demon-possessed and as a dumb spirit, throwing him in water and fire, and asks Jesus to heal the son. And Jesus says, do you believe that I can do this for you? The man says, I believe, Lord, but help thou my unbelief. And Jesus says to him, if you can believe, all things are possible to them that believe. And when this song was being sung right now, all things are possible. I was thinking, if we take these guys' interpretation, we can't sing songs like this. All things are possible. See, all roads lead to that conclusion only. He's teaching about faith. Faith for which all things are possible. The power of faith makes all things are possible. That's the whole emphasis, starting from chapter 2. Then in chapter 10, you have Bartimaeus crying out to Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. And he tells them, bring him to me. And he says, what do you want? He says, I want my sight. He says, go your way. Your faith has made you whole. The whole emphasis is upon faith all the way starting from the beginning to 10th chapter. 11th chapter, it climaxes. The teaching on faith literally climaxes with this teaching about the statement, teaching about faith and the statement about mountain-moving faith. After this, there is no teaching about faith. After this, the story goes that he goes into Jerusalem, gets into more trouble, finally gets crucified, then risen again, and so on. The story completely changes. Yes, there is a temple theme also. Certain things are mentioned about the temple, prophesied about the temple, and so on. The temple theme also is there. The temple theme begins in chapter 11. The faith theme ends in chapter 11. Both themes are there. Both things happen 2 days. One day he curses the fig tree, goes into the temple, cleanses it. The next day he sees the fig tree cursed and then teaches on faith. And then after verse 26, again he teaches in the temple. Again, there's a whole lot of things about the temple in 12th chapter and 13th chapter and so on. So this passage is caught right in between all these temple incidences. So they say this has to do with the temple and not with the faith. So don't talk about faith from this chapter, they say. But if that is true, when Peter came and said, Lord, the tree that you cursed withered away, he should have simply said, Peter, remember, this is what is going to happen to the temple. Even if he didn't want to say it in so many words, and if he was not going to disclose that much that day, he could have said it in a veiled manner, that this is about the temple. Instead, he goes exactly the opposite direction. He says, when Peter says the tree that you cursed is withered away, he said, have faith in God. It's a direct statement about faith. He says, Peter, understand something about faith. I want to show you how faith works. What you have is not faith at all. You saw and you believed. I spoke and I believed whatever I spoke will come to pass. So have faith in God. Faith in God must be translated as faith of God. Many of your English Bible translations will tell you that. They will at least give a marginal rendering saying faith of God is a better translation. The newer Bibles will have that. Because in, of, and all of that is placed there only according to the context and so on. So that can be changed. Many suggest that it must be of God, not faith in God. It's faith of God. So if that is true, Jesus is saying, have the faith of God. In other words, have my kind of faith, not your kind of faith. Your kind is not faith at all. My kind of faith is what faith is. This is how faith works. How does faith work then? It speaks knowing whatever you say will come to pass. That's what faith is. Faith works when you believe that what you say will come to pass and you speak because you believe. That's why Paul says, we believe and therefore we speak. We have the same spirit of faith. As the psalmist said, we believe and therefore we have spoken. We have the same spirit of faith. Therefore we also believe and we speak. We speak because we believe. Because we know that whatever we speak will come to pass. That's what the essence of faith is. Then he says the statement about the mountain. Even if you speak to the mountain, it will be. And notice, he says, whosoever. All these things don't apply to the temple scheme at all. If you interpret it as the temple, what is speaking to the mountain and whoever speaking to the mountain, not doubting in the heart, believing that whatever you say will come to pass, and you'll have what. All of these things do not apply to the temple at all. If it's about the temple, all of this is utterly unnecessary. All the statement makes no sense at all. This is talking about personal faith. Faith of a believer. It's talking not even about special faith. Some people say this is about some gift of faith that is given to some people to do some great thing. No, it is talking about a faith that is available to every person. Whosoever shall say unto the mountain. The power of faith. See, I feel very strongly about this because, that they're trying to draw the attention away from faith and the power of faith, which has been the emphasis every chapter, basically, up to chapter 11. Away from it to something that is much less significant, not very much useful to us. The story is about the power of faith. Even verse 24, which I'm going to show you right now. We looked up to verse 23. Verse 24 is about prayer. Based on what he has said about faith, he now says in verse 24, therefore, I say to you, what things soever you desire when you pray, or whatever things you ask when you pray, some translations say. Some translations say, whatever you desire. See, desire and ask are used interchangeably, the word desire and ask. If you use desire or ask, it's the same thing, because asking is simply asking what you desire. See, whatever you desire is not wrong. So whatever you desire when you pray, believe that you receive them and you shall have them. Even this, they try to link it with the temple, because in the temple he made a statement about prayer. He said, this shall be a house of prayer, God said. But you have made it a den of thieves. See, he started talking about prayer, and this is a continuation of the prayer thought, they say. No, what he said about prayer there is totally different from what he said about prayer here. It has no connection at all. There he is talking about how they made it a den of thieves, their corruption, and how it related to the temple, the purpose of the temple. Here he is talking about exercising faith in prayer. This is a statement clearly about faith. So now listen. Let's look into this, and now that we know that this is really about prayer, this is really about faith, and now he's giving prayer as an illustration so that we can understand how faith works, because that's what we're studying, how faith works. So he says, whatever you ask when you pray, believe that you receive them. Now this is what is very confusing. Last week in closing I said that, and just closed it, and I said I'll continue. Believe that you receive them, he says. He should have at least said received them, or believe that you will receive them. That'll make sense. Believe that you receive them. It almost looks like some kind of mistake has happened here, Believe that you receive them, then you shall have them. You feel like saying, please tell me whether I should believe that I have received them or I will receive them. Believe that you receive them means, how do I believe that I receive them? How do I understand this, So, let me read to you from another translation. Thank God that we simple people, I'm also a simple person, you can simply go to some other translation, because these guys really try to bring out whatever has not been brought out here properly. The later translations are about that. They try to bring out the meanings that are missed here. So I'm going to read Richard Francis Weymouth's translation. Weymouth's translation is quite popular. Let me read from Weymouth's translation, verse 24. The same verse, which says, whatever things you ask when you pray, believe that you receive them, you shall have them. Look at how he translates it. He says, that is why I tell you, whatever you pray and ask for, if you believe that you have received it, it shall be yours. Once again, that's why I tell you, whatever you pray and ask for, if you believe that you have received it, it shall be yours. If you believe that you received it, it shall be yours. Whatever you pray and ask for, if you believed that you received it, it shall be yours. Here he translates it clearly as received it. He's convinced that it's received it, not receive it or will receive it. Received it. Now, the problem is, still it doesn't make much sense to ordinary people. Why? Because it says, believe that you received it, and then the next statement is the thing that confuses. You shall have it. If I have received it, then why should he say, I shall have it? If I received it, that means I have it. Hello? Are you following me? If I received it, then I have it. Why does he say, believe that you received it and you shall have it? Now the question comes, have I received it or not? Why are you saying, believe that you received it, and then you say, you shall have it? That makes it look like I did not receive it. Now only I'm going to receive it. What is the truth? Now, how do we understand this? Go to Hebrews chapter 11. See, to understand how you can believe that you received it and then you shall have it, how that can make sense, you need to go to Hebrews 11:1, the classic biblical definition of faith, right? Now, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Okay, I'm reading from New King James. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, evidence of things not seen. Now, let me read it to you from Amplified Version. I want to point out something to you because you will understand now why he says, believe that you received it and you shall have it. That's the whole point of looking at this. Why? What is this about faith that I have to believe that I received it and then I will have it? If I believe that I received it, did I not receive it? Why should it say, I shall have it? What is it about faith that I don't understand? Look at verse 1, Hebrews 11:1 in Amplified Version. I'm going to stop and explain every little bit of what Amplified Version gives here. It says, now faith is the assurance. Amplified Version puts things in brackets because it expands. After it says assurance, it expands on assurance. It says the confirmation, title deed, 2 words within brackets. Now faith is the assurance, that is the confirmation or the title deed of the things we hope for. Faith being the proof of things we do not see. See, you don't see it, but you have a proof of it. Your faith is the proof. Your faith is the title deed. What is a title deed? Title deed shows ownership. Suppose someone said, whose house is this? Is this yours? Say yes, and they don't believe it. You show what? You show your document which contains your name there. Document is proof of ownership. Now, we read here, now faith is the confirmation or assurance or the title deed. Faith is a title deed in what sense? Faith is the title deed that these things that I'm hoping for is mine. They belong to me. I have a divine right to it. It has been given to me in and through redemption by salvation in Jesus Christ. These things are mine. I am the owner. I am the owner of every blessing in spirit, soul, and body. And the title deed tells me that. Faith is my title deed. Faith is the title deed. Faith is the assurance, it's the confirmation, is the title deed of the things that I'm hoping for. That means those things that belong to me are not yet in my hands yet. Right? How many of you know that you can have things but not in your hand? Right? Suppose, always use this illustration. Suppose somebody left 100 crores. Some of you are thinking, my God, hope someday it happens, Just imagine if someday it happens, that somebody left 100 crore and you get a notice saying, you got 100 crore sitting in such and such a bank, in your name, such and such an account number, come and get it. You go, they're not going to give it to you just right away, You got to bring all kinds of IDs and proofs and all that. There's probably a broker, who will broker this whole thing, work in between. There's a middleman usually, And he will work all the details out because you don't know anything about this. You'll need a lawyer for sure. You'll need an auditor for sure because you got to pay the government a lot of taxes. And by the time everybody gets through, you won't be getting 100 crores. I can bet on it, You'll be lucky if you got half of it. But you got to work things out. See, all the time you didn't have it, all the time that you were not using any 1 penny from that 100 crore, it was yours, right? But you were going through the process of claiming what is yours. But for never a moment you will cease from saying that it's yours. If anybody said it's not yours, you will take issue with it. It's yours. Even if you did not have 1 penny from it, even if you did not have 1 rupee transferred into your account, still you say, I have it, it's mine. You'll probably start borrowing based on that, Some of us are so good at that. Yeah, I'm getting it. Don't worry. I'll give it to you. It's coming pretty soon. Because even though we don't have it in hand, it's ours.
Down the mountain, the river flows, brings refreshing wherever it grows. Through the valleys and over the fields, the river is rushing and the river is here. The river of God sets our feet advancing. The river of God fills our hearts with cheer. The river of God fills our mouths with laughter, and we rejoice for the river is here. The river of God is steaming with life, and all who touch it can be revived. Those who linger on this river shore will come back thirsting for more of the Lord. The river of God sets our feet dancing. The river of God fills our hearts with cheer. The river of God fills our mouths with laughter, and we rejoice for the river is there. Oh, the river of God sets our feet dancing. The river of God fills our hearts with cheer. The river of God fills our mouths with laughter, and we rejoice for the river is here. We love to go and find the presence of the Lord. Along the banks of the river we run, we dance with laughter, giving praise to the sun. The river of God sets our feet dancing. The river of God fills our hearts with cheer. The river of God fills our mouths with laughter. We rejoice for the river is here. Oh, the river of